turned his mic on.
I'm back. Sorry, I'm running late.
His Yeti on.
Okay, everybody say something derogatory. We're streaming live.
How is the volume level?
Okay.
Copy.
Okay, you got me? Okay, can you hear me now? All right. How's it sound?
Volume level? I've got a little more distance on the mic.
It sounds okay.
No background noise?
No. I need to see if I've heard from Evan. I haven't. Can somebody get Judd the script?
Already on it.
Yep, got it.
Mike, did you put that replay in the drive?
Not yet, no. I can.
Can you move it if you got a chance in the next little bit here? I'm going to try and splice it together before we get to our end.
Well, we don't need the video as much as we need the...
Trust me, I found it. Don't worry.
All right, I'll finish doing topics here in a second.
Okay, so the way it'll work...
Grab it.
If Evan shows up, somebody send him the script. It's going to be hard for me to do, but my plan is we're going to skip the eNASCAR stuff till he shows up. So we'll do the interview with Judd, and then we'll go into regular stories, and then when he shows up, we'll jump to eNASCAR.
Do you want me to move that down in the script, or just leave it where it is?
No, I think we leave it.
Okay.
Just to keep it simple, because I don't know. He said, I'll do my best to be there on time, but I don't land in Minneapolis till about 6-ish, so I don't even know what time zone that is. But so we'll see. If he doesn't show for a while, we'll just kind of go into it.
Minneapolis is central, isn't it?
Yeah. Should be central.
Okay, be thinking about...
It's like 5:45 here.
All right, and then be thinking about topic ideas, title ideas.
Triple Crown?
And welcome, Judd. I'm glad you're here. So the first 10 or so minutes is like me and you talking, kind of do an interview, and then at that point you can stay or go. I mean, that's up to you. We'd love to have you stay, but you can also bail. So however you want to do it.
Sure, sounds good.
I guess I'm ready. Are you going to start the record and then I'll record, Dave? All right, go ahead and record it.
User in your channel started recording.
Welcome to the iRacers Lounge. I'm your host, Mike Ellis. iRacers Lounge is a podcast for the iRacer, where we talk all things iRacing in a casual setting. Joining me are the usual characters, Adam Jocelyn.
What's going on?
2020 Daytona 500 winner, Chris Scales.
Good evening.
2020 Daytona 500 winner, David Hall.
One among many.
Greg Hectus.
Does that mean I failed?
Tony Groves.
Howdy, gentlemen.
And Judd Danielson, our special guest.
Good to be here.
Hey, welcome, Judd. Happy to have you on the show. Thanks for coming on. So first, let's get to know you as an iRacer, and then we'll talk about what else you do. When did you first hear the word iRacing, and what did you do about it?
6 years ago, approximately. I was just looking for something that I could do in my spare time that would at least still let me be involved in the racing scene. I was heavily into the motorsports world, in the real world. So it was a transition for me that I wasn't going to be able to do that anymore, and so I just had to find something. I did some R-Factor stuff and so on, but never really was into, let's just say, quote-unquote gaming. So I just did some research and came upon iRacing, and I've got the bug, guys. I've had the bug every day for the last 5.5, 6 years now.
All right, real cool. So tell us about what do you normally run when you're on iRacing? Is it official, unofficial, hosted league?
Yeah, pretty much. I'm in leagues regularly. I will jump into some fixed and open setups for special occasions, running with some friends that seem to have a good time putting setups together on us. They're fun to run. And then, I try to support a number of leagues if I can, but right now I'm running 3 nights a week, so it's been interesting with more we're going to talk about. It's been really interesting keeping up with all that.
Yeah, absolutely. What kind of hardware are you racing with, like wheels, pedals? Are you on monitors or VR and third-party software?
Sure, yeah. I use, mostly it's all Fanatec stuff, the pedals, the wheel deck, the wheels, the NASCAR wheel with the universal hub. And I'm on a Track Racer TR8 rig, and some of the software, Sim Commander, stuff like that, pretty much. I try to dial in the iRacing side of it as best I can and use the documentation back there, the INI files. They are adjustable. Most folks will, they'll get it sooner or later, but a lot of that stuff's pretty adjustable, so you can use it to your advantage.
Yeah, you'll be interested in software we're going to talk about later today that lets you swap those INIs out on a regular basis real easily. Okay, let's keep moving. What gear did you start with? Well, wait, let me back up. You mentioned the TR8, which is a tubular cockpit from Track Racer, right? What do you think about that? Does it have any flex in the steering deck?
No, absolutely not. It's it really is up to the user, just like it is in our real cars, our race cars and such. If you're tweaking the nuts and bolts and staying on top of your ride, then everything can handle itself very well. I don't have any problem with it at all. I've adjusted it a few times. Just there's some new parts that have come out from Track Racer that's allowed us to raise our seats and our decking and stuff like that. So Matt's always changing stuff up on us, so we have to stay on top of him to try to get the best of what he's got available. And so far, everything's been great. Haven't had any problems with things loosening up or stuff like that, which that's what we're all looking for, is how rigid can you keep it.
Yeah, it's a real nice looking cockpit, and I've always had my eye on it. I don't think we've talked to anybody who's actually run it before, so that's why I wanted to ask. What did you start with before that? Like when you first got on iRacing, was it just like a laptop and a wheel?
Well, when I started with iRacing, I was on one monitor. I was at a desk. I was in a chair, just like a lot of us. I was on a G26 or G27, I'm sorry, and I did that for almost 2 years. And then when I started doing some business with Fanatec a while back, I was able to, support myself into getting some better gear, and I've moved over to triples. I've got quads now, but if we do them, then so be it. You run that fourth monitor for your telemetry stuff, and then I have had the VR. I did use it for a little while. I just chose to go back to the triples for some reason. I didn't not like the VR, but the submersion of it was cool and all that. I guess I didn't like being behind that mask. You can't see what you're doing. It's a little bit harder to do things on your keyboards and so on. So the triples work. You get them adjusted right, and they're great.
All right, sounds good. Let's talk about Abruzzi. Now you're involved with Abruzzi. Tell us about Abruzzi. Greg, you've actually bought some product from Abruzzi, and we've talked about it on the show in the past. But tell us about what you guys are doing for the sim community and what kind of products you offer.
Sure, yeah. My company is Abruzzi Racewear USA, and for short, it's Abruzzi USA. When I met Ben had just come to the scene. He's the Abruzzi Limited owner, so he's over in the UK. He's the man that started this whole thing. And when I came to him, I asked about the typical sponsorship stuff, as a driver and things like that. And, obviously he was just starting out, and he was more than happy to let me put his name on my cars, and that's what I did. I went out and I pumped his apparel and his boots and his gloves, anything that I could get people to take a look at his website for him. And I did that for a year. And then he came to me back in early 2019, and he approached me as a distributor, and I just said, "Yeah, I'm in. Where do I sign? I'm on this. I've been living it already for over a year with him, so it was just an advantage that he was growing. He needed somebody that he could rely on in the U.S. and basically what he does is he'll sell a country, he'll sell territories. Oh, let's just say he sells countries. He can't keep up with it all. Hell, I can't hardly keep up with Canada and the U.S. And I just took on Puerto Rico and Mexico last week. So it's an interesting marriage that we have around the world with the other companies that are involved with the Bruzy Racewear. And right now, it's exploding. And as you can imagine, as we get into this a little bit more, I'll give you some names that I've been able to get myself associated with that I didn't think anybody in my caliber would ever be able to reach out to that type of a caliber team and get their attention, but it happened. So,
well, that's great. So you offer all this product like gloves and shoes and actual fire suits and whatnot for the actual real racer, like kart racers or even road racers and so forth, but also the sim driver as well. What mix is the business compared sim to real life racers?
Sure. At abruzyusa.com, you'll see at the top it's got sim wear, karting wear, and then special editions and clothing. So the sim wear, our gloves, our boots, all the shirts and the stuff like that you can order through that portal. The layers are a little bit thinner, but the qualities of the material itself stay the same across the board. When we get into the karting side of it, these are double layered. We externally stitch those gloves. We make sure that they have double stitching in areas. We know there's a lot more stress than we put on our hands and on our wheels in the sim world versus real karting. So working with those drivers that are in the real karting world, they need to have stuff that's going to be a little bit more stronger to handle what they're doing. But I run straight up sim racing gloves, but I do own the pro boots just because I've had most of all the boots. I haven't actually tried any of the trainers yet, but I've had some friends buy them and they love them. They just felt like they didn't need a boot in their sim rigs, so they chose the trainers and they love them. So that's where I'm at with the clothing side of it is always changing, guys. We're just constantly trying to bring something different to the market. At the same time, we know that teams and drivers alike, they like the way that, I'll use the NASCAR side of it. When you're wearing a team shirt, it's I use the word rainbow, but real vibrant, and try to get their team colors in there. But we let these folks, every single person that comes there, and Greg would know this, you get to custom build your stuff. It's why our motto is your wear, your way. So we don't imply anything. We let you free hand everything to us, and then we'll mock it all up, send it back to you, and we'll keep messing with it until you're perfectly happy, and then we'll send it off to production.
Now, I think when I did, sorry, Mike, to step in here. When I dealt with, I think I dealt with Brad at the beginning because I think it was before he had you on this side, because I did from the overseas. I waited a while for mine, but the reason that I was drawn to it, it was that customizing. Like I customized it for my stream and my own logo and stuff like that, which I think the guys thought it was kind of cool. The shoes is what I really needed, and it was nice to have a special custom stitching on it for my logo and my name and everything like that. So I appreciated that it was there.
Right.
So a real racer can put his sponsorship colors on it and put the name on it and that kind of thing.
Absolutely, you bet. I just was working with a team last night. We signed them on for a karting season, and they're going to be wearing all the Abruzzi, the Pro Kart bundle. So it's the boots, the gloves, and the suit, and they'll be having all of their custom original work put on that. And Abruzzi's on every piece of apparel, boot, glove. It's just we can move it around at the customer's request, but it's always going to be on there. It's our brand. It's like the other guys. You're always going to see it, but we're willing to move our stitching around because it's a custom piece. So as long as the customer's happy with the overall look of it, then that's what we're looking for. That's what we want for them, is to be happy with it forever.
Yeah, pretty cool. If you want some sim gloves, I mean, this is the way to go. There's a short version, the long version. You got the shoe or the boot. So there's some options for sure. So, Judd, we've been seeing your Abruzzi brand, Abruzzi USA here in the iRacing community recently a lot. I mean, I saw it on Podium Esports. Specifically for their Daytona 500. Your name was all over the place. Now you've got the Coke Series, the eNASCAR Coke Series, and you got some involvement there. Go ahead and tell us what's going on.
Yeah, sure. I sponsored the duels for the esports for Podium there that weekend, and an affiliate of mine, Chris Eiton, owns Sim Motorsports. He was the main sponsor for that race for the Podium deal. That was a real nice outing. That weekend went real well for everybody, and we hope we had some great, customers that came through, and the winners have been really gracious and very fun to work with. They've had some really cool ideas, and so that kind of pushed me into a position where somebody that I've been racing with since pretty much the month that I started on iRacing, his name's Dylan Duval, and I reached out to him after the draft, and I thought, well, Dylan, what's going on? Who you got for sponsors? So on and so forth. Oh man, dude, I don't know. I'm just spinning here. Well, I get a phone call from the manager, the marketing senior manager in marketing, Jake Morris. He reaches out to me and says, "Hey, we'd really like to take a look at this opportunity." I'm like, "Is this the real Stewart-Haas Racing Esports?" Blah, blah. Yep, it's me. I'm like, "Oh my God." So it was a situation where I didn't think it would come that far, Mike. I just thought, well, let's give it a try. Let's just see what happens, And sure enough, we worked out a deal. We got the contract, and we're working on all their apparel and their outfits and stuff like that. So we're in the thick of it.
That is awesome. And to get some exposure to Stewart-Haas as a team even, there's probably a big opportunity there, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, if you look at their cars, Justin Bolton and Dylan Duval are the two pro drivers from that side, the eNASCAR Coca-Cola side. And then there's also two more drivers, which they've yet to name, for the console series, of the Heat series. So they'll come out whenever they decide to do whatever they're going to do over there, and then we'll get those folks handled as well. But really, it's just trying to get the brand out there, so when you think about Abruzzi, you know exactly what you're thinking about. Nike did it, all the rest of them did it in certain ways, but we're small grassroots community here. We're trying to keep everybody. That's what we love so much about, when you bring drivers in, and trust me guys, I get 8, 10, 12, 15 requests a day. I need a sponsor, I need a sponsor, I need a sponsor. I'm like, yeah, I'm sure you do. I've been in your shoes. I know how it feels. What do you got? What can you bring to the table? That kind of stuff. So I do interviews. I do research on these drivers. I don't just pick them up. I don't throw them gloves and boots just so they can go have a good time and say, hey, look what I got for free. I would respect them for respecting me and what I'm trying to do here. And as we all know, business isn't free. So at the end of the day, Dylan wins this big race the other night, and I'm like, holy moly, all this press release comes out for Abruzzi Racewear with Stewart-Haas Racing Esports Division, and wouldn't you know it, he pulls out a win that night, and then we come into the 500, and the poor guy struggle. So Justin, I'm not even quite sure where he finished. I think top 15 or something, but it's been a cool situation so far. I've been learning a lot real fast. You kind of get thrown into this, and you wonder if you're doing it right, if you're saying stuff you shouldn't say or whatever. But I mean, I know where I stand. I'm the preferred simware provider of Stewart-Haas Esports across the board. There you go. That's it right there.
Yeah, that's great. Great opportunity to sponsor. Dylan Duval, he had a tough race. I watched Nick Neben's YouTube channel. He's a spotter for Dylan, and he puts up a nice video of kind of a summary of what their race was. And they had some challenges with the pit strategy and stuff, and so it was a tough race. But he did win the Clash, and that was a great win for him. So congratulations to Dylan and Abruzzi for that. One more question here before we move on. How big is this Coke Series blowing up from a sponsor perspective. And we'll talk about it a little bit later when we get into the eNASCAR news. But all these sponsors jumping on these cars here as we just had the first race of the season. You're one of them. But all the buzz behind it, especially in the NASCAR realm, when you got NASCAR drivers involved in social media, pushing these new sponsors. For example, Kyle Busch with his Rowdy Energy sports drink he just released, and he gets that on one of the cars. And I mean, how special is it to be involved in that?
I'm amazed. I really am amazed at the opportunity that Stewart-Haas has brought to the table for my little company. What we're trying to do, to build the buzz. The idea behind what we all know, being involved in iRacing for so long, is it's a passion for all of us. It's something that we can't spend millions and millions and millions of dollars. We're not going to be able to go compete with the Tony Stewarts and all those guys out there. There's just no way. I mean, at this point right now, we got the best of the best opportunity to have a great time and meet people that you most likely wouldn't meet on the streets anywhere else. I mean, last night, my main driver, Gary Sexton, he's battling it out with Dale Jr. on the track for the 500. I mean, it's crazy. The whole race, 500 miles. You guys were running them earlier today, I believe. But I'm watching this, and, Junior's being very casual and cool and calm and collected about it, and everybody's enjoying themselves. So I think that iRacing and some of the other owners and such, these teams that have come out, they know that we're for real, that we want to see this expand and grow. With Coca-Cola coming on board, I couldn't have imagined a better company to indulge us. The idea behind Abruzzi Racewear being able to stand next to these monster conglomerates and companies, it's pretty exciting, guys. It's very humbling. Let's just say it like that.
It is, and there's a lot going on with eNASCAR here on the first week. So we'll get into that. But boy, Judd, we certainly appreciate you coming on the show and telling us about Abruzzi. We had Greg, has had a good experience with your product in the past, and we've talked about it, but good to get you on and talk about the Stewart-Haas deal. So thanks for coming on. And now we're going to talk eNASCAR next, but we're actually going to wait because guess what? We're going to have a special guest, Evan Pasoko.
Oh, nice.
The voice of eNASCAR is going to be coming on to join us. He just landed. He's in an Uber. He's headed to the hotel, and he'll be on shortly. So we'll get back to eNASCAR when Evan gets here, and we'll get his take on everything.
Sounds good. Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. I know that you and I talked, previously, seeing if we could get some time together. So this worked out real nice. Real life, we got to do that in order to have our fun. So I appreciate you bearing with me, and it's been a whirlwind. It's been a lot of fun. I'm excited to keep going. We've got some great teams out there running this year, so it's going to be a fun season to see how these. I don't know. I mean, I'm 55 years old almost. I call these guys kids still, but hey, I'm all for them. I can't wait to see how they do.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be a great season to watch. Thanks for coming on, Judd Danielson, and telling us about Abruzzi. So let's jump right to topics. David, what's the first one? I don't hear you.
Oh, sorry, I had the microphone muted. The first one I'm actually going to toss over to Tony, who's going to tell us a little bit about iRacing on Times Square.
Haha. Yeah, catch me while I'm sleeping again. This was kind of going around on all the different social medias here. Just a Twitter from Steve Myers, picture of the eNASCAR logo right up there on Times Square. I'm not sure what building that is. I'm not familiar with Times Square, but it's on one of the corners of the square, so big and bold and in everybody's face.
That's like the most expensive billboard in the world to advertise on, I understand.
Well, that even makes it a even more bigger of a deal then.
Yeah, and what's cool about it is iRacing probably didn't pay for that. It was probably Coke or NASCAR. It was probably Coke. But yeah, pretty cool to see that. Okay, David, I was going out of order. Tell us some more of this strange news about tire warming.
Well, to sum it up, iRacing kind of rolled back and backed off of their severe punishments. Tyler Hudson put out a statement that here's the deals, guys. Obviously, something is going on to have so many suspensions. I don't do the protest, nor do I have anything to do with the protest, and have only been recently notified of this week of the suspensions. And that has continued to snowball. It's become apparent we have an issue. For some perspective, this rule has been posted since December 21st, and up until the week, he personally had not heard of any suspensions as a result of it being broken. He noted that several people are involved at this point from iRacing and Porsche, and we are working to come up with a solution that is fair for everyone, especially you guys and the competitors. In any case, like this, you can't please everyone, but being as fair as possible is the priority. So he put that out. Some of the griping about it actually made news in Finland. We have a link to that. We also have a link with a post of a lot of people talking about the issue. And then kind of the latest word was that for the remainder of the season, for the remainder of the season, driving extremely slowly while spinning the tires or driving slowly to a stop and accelerating again will be allowed. However, donuts and stationary burnouts against the wall are not allowed. We will be rescinding the penalties issued for the warming techniques that were on the fringe of the rule. For example, driving extremely slowly while spinning the tires, or driving slowly at a stop and accelerating again. So they basically kind of rolled back and said, okay, we're going to let you do this, even though, we talked about it quite a bit, that it was clearly breaking the spirit of the rule, but they've decided that it was too much of a gray area.
Ugh, is what I have to say. Man, I don't like the idea that you make a decision and then you back down from the decision after pressure from sponsors and competitors and whoever else is giving you pressure. You don't see NASCAR doing that, do we? But,
Well, whether it's NASCAR or football or just about any major sport, there's always been this, there has been this knowledge that if you're Emmitt Smith, sorry, I'm dating myself here. If you're Emmitt Smith, you can get away with more than a third-string wide receiver as far as what you get penalized for.
Well, and the other thing I don't like about it, too, is for the rest of the season, to be competitive in this series, you have to do this. You have to warm your tires because it's allowed. It is literally allowed. And so if you don't do it, you're not going to have a good time, right?
They say it's allowed, or is it something that there's gonna where they like this is your warning and they're gonna come down as they should have in the future?
They have explicitly said it is allowed for the
remainder of the season, driving extremely slowly while spinning tires or driving and slowing to a stop and accelerating again will be allowed.
See, that sucks. I can understand. I know there's money involved, and I can understand backpedaling on it, but I would have rather seen them backpedal to. Okay, obviously we weren't clear enough on this because so many people broke the rule, but so you're fine this time, but going forward, know that it's against the rules.
I completely agree with that. If I give out a test and so many of the kids fail it, I won't tell them that I know it probably is on me, but so I'll kind of give them the riot act and say we're going to do this test again, but I know that it means I need to do something different to try to get them to understand it. But that being said, I'm not going to let them just fail the test again.
Yeah, it's like the camber exploit. I mean, it's something that you had to do in order to be competitive. But with that, that was a hard thing to fix. This is not a hard thing to fix. Don't leave an exploit in there for people to have to work around. That sucks.
And it made national news in Finland. And there's an article that names Nim Cross and Tyler Hudson and so forth, and shows results of qualifying from iRacing and so forth. It's kind of a black eye, I think, on what's going on, but oh well. I guess they had to do something.
Well, let's just hope this doesn't set a precedence. What is it, the squeakiest wheel gets the grease type deal. Hopefully they can learn from this whole thing here, and I mean, they're racers. Everybody's a racer, wants to be a racer, so you're going to try and find those little exploits wherever you can. I mean, the real guys do it, but throw the hammer down and leave the hammer down. Don't lift it up.
Have a driver's meeting. Was there not a driver's meeting? State the rules if you have to, for guys.
Yep. Well, hopefully it doesn't backfire on them. Speaking of backfire, Chris, tell us about particles and backfires.
Those transitions are so smooth. So Greg Hill made a post on the forums. Just a heads up. He said this may not apply to all members, but some, including myself, have noticed the backfires went all quiet. And actually, after reading this, I noticed that I haven't heard that myself. He said it's quite possible the particle setting got changed to low detail. Please bang them back up to full detail, and you'll be cracking and popping in no time. So apparently, those sounds are related to the particle setting. So if you have that set on high, you probably never notice a difference. But if you're like me and you have some of that stuff on the edge, if you crank that back up, then you'll get that back. He said he also gets complaints the gear shifts are too soft. And he says the gears are impacts and physics driven, so if you turn up the crash slider in the sounds menu, that'll affect that sound. So I know a lot of people might have that cranked way down and maybe the tires way up so they can hear that better. But if you turn those crash sounds up, you'll hear that gear shift clunk better.
They need to redesign this a little bit. I mean, logically, it doesn't sound right. I mean, I have to turn on particles to be able to hear something? I mean, that doesn't even make sense.
I guess because it must be like the sound that you're hearing, the sound of the particles that are coming out of the exhaust, maybe. And I can that one doesn't make as much sense. The gear shift kind of makes sense to me because they're simulating that metal on metal, sound and that impact of the shifter in the box. So I guess maybe that one makes a little sense.
I would say that the reason is if the particle visual is not occurring, it's also not going to make the sound for it. To make a whole.
Yeah. Yep. That makes sense.
Yeah. If you can't see it, why would you hear it? Is that what you mean?
Exactly. Yep.
Okay, I get it.
What you can see, though, is the top 10 highlights video, Mike.
Yeah, I was just looking at that. Boy, it's some good ones here. Of course, it's like 4 wide for the win, and there were some dirt modifieds with a .001 at the line. Those kind of highlights, pretty good if it's for the January. Some good saves as well. There was a nice one down the backstretch of Daytona where the guy was able to keep it going straight. And what do you guys think?
I like to save the guy did the modified. It was crazy. Stuck the landing.
Yeah, and then the number one was kind of a tribute to Martin Solari at the end of the race at the Daytona 24. All the cars kind of went in formation in a slow kind of pace lap, 2 and 3 wide, as a tribute to Martin, who I understand has passed away. And I do believe he was on Coanda SimSport, I believe. Or maybe it was Team Redline. It's one of the big teams. But he was involved with one of them, and this was a nice tribute. All right, let's keep moving. David, I blame the burritos.
Well, everybody knows that burritos can lead to explosiveness, and so I don't know if this car decided they were gonna try to Michael Waltrip the car or so, but it's sitting in a pace formation. The car's hadn't even started going yet, and it just this Mazda, is it a Mazda? It just explodes.
Yeah, Mazda. And it's weird. I try to frame by frame shot it, and try to pause it on the right spot, and you can't. I mean, it explodes like within a frame. It just like a bomb went off. It's just crazy, and it just shoves it into the wall super hard.
That's when I shut the computer off and don't come back for 4 or 5 days.
Was that guy trying to get SR, you wonder?
He didn't get any, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, so that's a post by Bill Eberhardt, and he said, I blame the burrito. All right, next up, I'll do iRacing with Michael Jordan. And this is a podcast by Nate Ryan at NBC. And I listen to his podcast all the time. And he had the Denny Hamlin interview. And they had a discussion about iRacing during that interview. A couple of notes. Denny said iRacing approached him wanting him to start a team. I have a history in iRacing similar to William Byron, but really it was a huge benefit for me in the rookie season. I used it quite a bit, and I'm recently getting back into it. I've been watching races online. I wanted to be a part of it. He said, I want to go after the best guys, and I got a couple of good ones.
User in your channel is recording.
Next up, he said about MJ's involvement, Michael Jordan. He said, I went to him and said, hey, do you want to get involved? Michael did the design on the car for the Jumpman car. He got back to him within a couple days right around Christmas about it. When it was in Charlotte, he talked about how he took the iRacing drivers to lunch. He said, I think that it was very good at iRacing back in the day. I set it on the pole and won some very prestigious races. He said he talked by DM to Logan and Ray Alfala, and has been kind of talking to them one-on-one. He saw that they were hanging out in Charlotte, so he said, hey, come on by down to the house. He said they were good at what they do. Hearing their stories, it's definitely growing our sport, and he's referring to NASCAR. He said that the challenge for our sport is it is hard to relate to our sport as they cannot simulate it like playing basketball, football, etc. With iRacing, it gives them a way to relate to the sport. It was pretty neat to have Nate Ryan do the podcast, and he did do a follow-up article at NBCSports.com with those quotes and some pictures and stuff of the drivers hanging out at his house and that kind of thing. But it was interesting to see how involved Michael Jordan was with the paint job and that kind of thing.
So speaking of paint jobs, we got to get a good look at a lot of new paint jobs on the race Tuesday night, and we have our second special guest joining us.
Evan Pasoko, thanks for coming by.
How's it going, guys? Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Boy, what a race the Coke race was this week, and we wanted to get you on to talk about it a little bit. Let's go through it. Let me get back to the right part in the script. We're going to go through the eNASCAR news, and I just want to kind of go in chronological order. So before the race during the week, we had several sponsorship announcements. We had Abruzzi. We just talked to Judd about that with Stuart Haas. And then Brad Davies with Junior Motorsports announced True Timber as a paint job, and it was kind of a neat thing on social media. They were asking, is that a red or is that an orange? What did you guys tell Dale Jr.?
I'll tell you what, that's definitely a red paint scheme. So if you think it's orange, then you're wrong, but that's fine. But it's super cool, and we see this every year. But especially with the last two seasons, with the teams involved, seeing all these new sponsors coming into the fold, what we're seeing this year, a lot more than what we saw last year, is especially for like the NASCAR Cup affiliated teams, a lot of them simply just ran their sponsors that they have on their Cup program or whatever it is, already basically sponsors that are in-house. I think the coolest thing, and that True Timber is a really good example, I'd say more than half of the field has some sort of new partnerships coming in, is a lot of these are iRacing or the esports specific partnerships where these companies are signing on with this team for this series. Sometimes there's an existing relationship there, but I think that seeing these companies come on where their eNASCAR cars are different than their Cup Series cars because it's a designated sponsor is super cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can actually see all the paint jobs on one page. The RacingExperts.com, Justin Melillo posted up a recent guest on our show. All the paint jobs as of that day, and you can check them out. There are quite a few, and like you said, a lot of new sponsors in there. And we'll talk about some more sponsorship announcements as we go through the week here. The next one, it was kind of a neat fun fact put out by Eric Smith. He said that eNASCAR Coke iRacing Series had 38 cars involved in a crash last week, which if you count the series as a NASCAR sanctioned series, because it is the new largest crash record for a NASCAR sanctioned race. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, they certainly they put on a show, to say the least, in that clash. And, you know, based on the fact that race, of course, this past Tuesday, it's inevitable when you've got 3 wide, some 39, I think, total cars in that lead pack, that something like that's going to happen. We were concerned that big melee was going to scare everybody. And then even in the shootout earlier, and then, of course, for the season opener on Tuesday, that drivers would be very timid. But if anybody tuned in, then that was one of the best Daytona races we've seen with 3 wide throughout. We still wrecked the cars. It happened at the very end. This time around, most of them at the end. But, yeah, we wrecked a lot of virtual race cars last week.
Yeah, and so the record in NASCAR history before that, 37 cars on lap 1 in the 1960 modified race at Daytona. No injuries there. So, yeah, pretty cool for Eric to notice that. Next up was a sponsorship announcement by William Byron. Logitech is partnering with him on his cars, and they got a pretty nice paint job. William Byron said, "Hey, I started on a Logitech wheel, and now we're partnered to go iRacing." How cool is that?
That's even one of the sponsorship ones that I commented on and retweeted on Twitter, because even though I'm no good at driving, so I stick to the broadcast stuff, I use a Logitech wheel. That's the first wheel that I got. I just got a newer Logitech wheel a couple of months ago, and I think that's one where I'm not sure if that's necessarily a sponsorship that Logitech would do on a real-life race car, because it's a little bit more of a niche product, but I think that's an absolutely perfect partnership for this space of esports. And, a lot of the drivers in the Coke Series, who are the pros, and the teams have helped out a lot in the last few years, guys, with, getting them triple monitor setups and upgrading their equipment, but we've had a significant number of the Coke Series championships won on a G27, so a Logitech product. So I thought that was super cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Other notable notes leading up to the race, Steve Lavender did his normal power rankings on the enascar.com, so check those out as well. Then we had a look at a kind of a neat video that iRacing put together with some footage we haven't seen of Zach Novak at the Homestead race to collect his championship trophy this last year. And kind of neat to see some new footage that we haven't seen before. I thought we had already seen everything, but it did show a few new things that he was doing, that he got to sit in on the drivers' meeting and get recognized in front of all the drivers, and that was pretty cool.
It was, and a couple of years back, when Jimmy Johnson won his 7th championship, I was actually down in Homestead for the race, and I think that was my first year doing the Coke Series. And not only did I get to meet a couple of the guys from iRacing who were down there, but of course our champion was down there, and that's one of the cool things that we've really hyped up. Before the prize money was as massive as it is now, the kind of coolest part about winning this series was the fact that you get the ring, you get the trophy and the check, but you get to go down to Homestead, and you're in the NASCAR suite. You're a guest of NASCAR, and that's only going to continue to get better. That was certainly a busy offseason for Zach, though. I know he showed that video, and then as well, of course, he got to do the test in the late model stock car as well. So he had a very busy offseason. He and our Ignite champion got to do that as well, and I think that those kind of experiences are also going to continue to grow, in addition to the fact that they're racing for more money, which is always nice.
Yeah, absolutely. Some more sponsorships were Kyle Busch. We mentioned briefly his new Rowdy Energy drink. He's on one of the Joe Gibbs cars now. We also had Mode Motorsports put out some paint jobs. I don't know if they had a sponsorship there, but and then there was a Twitter from Richmond Raceway about running a Coke sponsorship, but they removed the Twitter. That got deleted, so I don't know what happened there. And then Jim Beaver Esports had the Big Green Egg, which I love.
And they were one of the companies as well, the Big Green Egg folks. They were involved on Twitter as well. So they were actually live tweeting over the course of Tuesday's opener and engaging with Eric and the Jim Beaver Esports Twitter account online during the race, which is super cool. So I look forward to seeing, hopefully, some of those newer partners that are coming into the series being as engaged as that particular partner has been, and just kind of growing the conversation on social media over the course of this season.
Yeah, and then several hype videos as we approach the race, put out by not only iRacing but NASCAR themselves, just getting everyone fired up. There was so much hype for this. So let's kind of get into the race itself. I mean, you did have a special guest right off the bat, Evan, NASCAR Senior Vice President Tim Clark. Just to reiterate, NASCAR is involvement in this, in how thrilled they are to be partnered with Coke and iRacing.
And Tim is somebody as well who I've actually had the opportunity over the last 1.5 years or so to actually talk with on a fairly regular basis. He's very hands-on. It's not like, and really everybody at NASCAR is very hands-on with this series, from Jusan, who's the competition director, as well to Brandon Williams and everybody else. But I've been able to talk with Tim a couple of times before last night just to talk about iRacing and his love for it and mine, and kind of where we see this series going and how we can improve on making the broadcast better. So anytime, obviously, you can get somebody from NASCAR on the broadcast, we'll try to do that all season long. So very appreciative of Tim for giving us some time. But I mean, everybody there is all in, and this is something that I got to see firsthand at Media Day this year when I was out there for one of the days. Is that from the top to the bottom, that everybody at NASCAR is taking this series super serious, and that could only spell a good thing for its success now and as well in the future. Okay, so let's talk about the actual race. Right off the bat, everybody who's watching, I mean, it's a great broadcast, by the way, but right off the bat, so distracting. About 5 cars that happen to be on the same team have their nose sticking up in the air with the rear buried down into the pavement. I called it comical and unrealistic looking. I think John Hammer called it the monster truck setup. But it's just a particular setup that this team has put in the car. Now, we had preliminary events all week, and we never saw it, so they saved it for this event, for the points event. And boy, it was quite a difference. Now, you guys didn't really talk about it on the broadcast that I heard, but I don't know if it affected the racing. They were fast, but I don't know if they were like a lot faster. Yeah, it didn't really appear to us that there was any sort of huge advantage. We actually first noticed it in qualifying, because the way that the actual race server is set up this season is they qualify in the same iRacing session as the race. And that happens about 20 minutes before the green flag. Then there's a warm-up. So we saw it in the practice, or in the qualifying, I should say, and we weren't sure if that was just a qualifying setup or if that was going to be a race setup thing. And then we also weren't sure if that was actually a thing or if it was just some sort of like a funny glitch or something. So that's why we didn't really comment on it. I don't know if it helped or not. I mean, they started up front, so maybe there was some sort of qualifying advantage. And I guess the age-old saying goes, if you aren't pushing the limits on what the setup will allow within the rules, then you're not trying. But certainly, you're right. We did not see that in any of the private practice stuff that I watched in. We didn't see it in the Clash. We didn't see it in the shootout. And we kind of figured that, right? I don't think anybody was really going to bring out their race setup or their Q setup in those special events. They were running something close to it, no doubt. I think we all knew that they were going to save something, but that was certainly a surprise, and I think that they would have been smart to save it, because if they had that on, from the start of the virtual speed weeks, I'm not sure that setup would have actually made it to the race. So, the teams and drivers are trying everything they can, and that was certainly that was something new.
Well, we were actually seeing that in the majors qualifying sessions as well from a lot of the faster guys. So it did seem to be making a bigger difference in the qualifying set.
Yeah, well, that goes into, and with these guys as well, and obviously a lot of people put tons of time into the majors races and whatnot, and tons of league stuff. I mean, obviously they know what they're doing. I'm not a big setup person, so a lot of the time, when we're talking about technical stuff, I'll defer to Tim on that, who's been around the series and kind of knows those dynamics a lot better than I do. But they obviously tested it and wanted to go with it, especially for this race. Most of these teams had put in thousands of laps at Daytona on those setups before we ever saw it. So obviously it was a conscious effort. Yep. And the racing, once you get past that visual part of those 5 cars, the racing was awesome. I mean, 3 wide, 8 deep, 10 deep.
there were green flag stops. There were different pit strategies. You guys in the booth were calling them great. In fact, at part of the race, I was outside. I was listening on my cell phone, not actually watching, kind of doing the MRN thing. And it's great racing just listening to it because of all the different strategies you guys were covering. What'd you think of, as we went through the race there, how that played out?
Well, and that goes back to what I had mentioned kind of off at the top, that with the way that the clash went last Wednesday, and then even with the shootout on Monday night, we weren't really sure if it was going to be crazy from the top. I mean, this was the most, and I think the most competitive race at Daytona I've seen, not only in the 4 years now that I've been doing this, but as well, back to all the ones that I watched. I mean, it was 3 wide sustained. Now, that third lane did struggle a little bit more this week than it did in the clash last week. They were able to, get kind of up to 2 car lengths off of the very front and then drop back, and I don't think a lot of drivers were really willing to commit all the way up there. But I could probably count the laps in which we weren't 3 wide on my hands. I mean, and that was probably only because of our pit cycles. It was really good. The drivers were locked in. I thought one of the coolest things that we can do now with the broadcast is take a lot of the live look-in shots at the drivers. And one thing that I found funny is some of the drivers we looked into were like super serious, straight-faced. Others were laughing and having a good time. And the feedback from the drivers as well is they loved it. We have 2 Daytona races this year, plus the Talladega, so 2 more plate races still to go. But it was a ton of fun for us to watch, and maybe, I hope at least, that because we were having fun, it translated to everybody watching on the broadcast, because I don't think you could have asked for anything else.
Yeah, I love the cameras. Ryan Michael Luza looking so serious and just angry almost, But yeah, and then Bobby Zielinski kind of buried in the dark. And I love the cameras. That's really nice. But when it come down to it, it was pretty clean at the end up front. They did kind of pile up later back in the pack as they were coming to the checker. But Keegan Leahy wins by 4 1/1000ths of a second. He was on the bottom. Brian Schoenberg and all those guys were up there trying to get him, but it just wasn't enough. But Bobby and Keegan were lined up on the bottom, and they got it. And so they teamed up, and they were one of those cars that was kind of sticking up in the air. So let's go into post-race a little bit. We did get some comments from some of the drivers on the forums about the monster truck setup. Eric Smith called it airplaning, as they called it. Keegan Leahy said, yeah, we've talked to iRacing about it. They're going to probably, quote, fix it soon. In fact, Keegan did mention that he spoke to iRacing about this setup before they ran it before the race, just to make sure everybody knew what was happening. Because at first glance, a lot of the people in the forums and the people with the pitchforks are like, these guys are cheating somehow. They're doing some kind of setup exploit, but they're not. Whatever setup they ran is within the rules.
And I think that'll be, maybe this will go down in history as iRacing's version of the T-Rex car, where you build something within the rules. I mean, by the rule book, it's legal, but maybe it shouldn't be legal. And if it's not by, I've heard maybe it's even going to be before we get out to Fontana. I don't think it'll really make a difference there. But 99% chance you're not going to see that when we go to Talladega.
Yeah, in fact, Steve Letarte put on Twitter, be careful what you claim won't work in real life. I remember sideways crab-walking cars winning races with a huge side force advantage. It's not a car show, it's a race.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, you got to push the envelope. And especially, I think it's funny, and to the point that you had made, the fact that they didn't show any of that in the testing is that they kind of knew that it's kind of your one shot at using it. So, get out there, get your points, and move on with it. And like I said, maybe we'll probably see drivers once, if this is taken off of the table, when we continue plate racing, not just this year, but throughout years to come. Someone's always going to be looking to find something that gives them an advantage.
Yeah, Christian Schallner, who was one of those cars, he said our car passed tech inspection. It was 100% within the rules, both the letter and the spirit of them. Absolutely nothing we did was outside of any set boundary, and members of both setup groups messaged iRacing informing them of exactly what we were doing prior to the race.
And it's also interesting, and I'm not sure if it can relate directly to this conversation, but during the media days that happened in Charlotte in the off season, all of these drivers had an opportunity to sit down. They were split up into groups of about 10, I think, so maybe 4 different groups, maybe a little bit smaller than that. And all the drivers had a sit-down competition meeting with not only Jusan Hamilton, who's basically the NASCAR representative, but also Tyler Hudson, who is kind of the more directly involved admin, and they were able to ask questions. So I'm not sure if that's something that can even stem back that far. I can't speak to, which outlet in which they were reaching out to the iRacing officials, but there's always been a dialogue, especially with some added emphasis this year, where the drivers can talk to Hudson and to Hamilton if they want.
Yep. And more post-race, NASCAR Live put up the race. They did several post-race Twitters and whatnot. We even got a recap of the race. iRacing put up, I think, today. That was pretty nice, a 2-minute recap. And then even, Evan, we got to see your pretty face calling a couple laps there. Kind of interesting to see how you get into it.
Yeah, so I kind of did that just for myself, because I obviously don't know what I look like, and now I realize that I look really angry for some reason.
Serious.
That's why I captioned it. I'm not mad, I promise, but I was really into it. And I guess when you have a close finish like that, that's what you'll get. And I actually tried to recruit Randy and Tim to get a camera on them as well, so that I could kind of put something together and toss it out. But I didn't bring it up till like 30 minutes before the race started. So it was just me, and I was expecting it to get like, maybe 50 people will watch it. Nobody really cares. And then I wake up, I think it's got like 70,000 views on Twitter, like just something absolutely stupid. So now, of course, because it had some good reception, I think that for Fontana, just like the driver camera angles are available, I think I'm going to have my live camera available, not to like cut to me, because nobody cares about me calling the race when it's happening, but I think we'll be using that camera, so when I'm interviewing, like Keegan, when he wins, it's not just going to be him. We'll actually probably have both of us up on the screen, so it feels a little bit more connected. So just because I decided to post it on Twitter, I think that's going to be something that we're going to implement for our post-race stuff going forward.
Yeah, and the broadcast has been awesome this year, by the way.
Well, I can't say enough. I just want to slide in on that point. With iRacing now taking over the broadcast, and Hugo and Will and everybody at RaceSpot did such a good job over the last few years. And I tweeted about this as well Tuesday night, that it is literally a small army at iRacing. There's, all the camera angles that you're seeing, there's like 3 different people on cameras remoting in to the room, and then you've got Drew and Cisco and everybody in that room. There's easily a dozen people directly involved in what's going on the screen in producing the broadcast. Countless meetings, the test broadcasts, all that stuff that not, people outside of the circle won't know about. So I just want to reiterate that I guess a thanks to everybody at iRacing for how much is going into this. And I think that you guys could all tell with how much more is brought to it now, that hard work is going to pay off this year.
Well, Mike was mentioning a little bit earlier, talking about MRN, and one of the things that particularly makes those broadcasts exciting to watch is that your vocal style is really more similar to the MRN guys than it is to the TV guys. It has that pace and that intensity, which I particularly enjoy.
And that's one thing that we've talked about with our style as well, is because we're, like me, Randy, and Tim are not together, it's a little bit more difficult to kind of do a TV style where it's more open. And like in TV, it's not somebody talks and then somebody picks back up. There's kind of moments of pauses, and it's a different style. It's just really hard to do that when you can't look at the guy next to you and cue off them. So that's why we've always kind of been that MRN-esque style, where we're always calling what's on the screen, but then sometimes we can kind of ramble on because we have the benefit of the picture that radio doesn't. We can kind of go on tangents sometimes and let the pictures speak for themselves. But I've always been a play-by-play person, so that's what I find fun in. And there's no easier way to do a play-by-play race than Daytona, especially the way that they did it. But I'm happy that we've got our crew together, and I'm happy that we've gotten so much positive feedback.
All right, very good. Final story that came out today, William Byron Esports signed Sim Seats as a sponsor for one of his cars as well. Evan Pasoko, thank you so much for coming on the show. We'd love to have you back. We kind of talked about maybe you can come on after some of the races this season and kind of help me race review these. And we do appreciate you coming on. I know you were traveling today, and thanks for making time.
Yeah, no worries. I apologize if the microphone doesn't sound that great. I'm just on some headphones here in my hotel in Minneapolis, and luckily the start of the duel, I think, has been delayed a little bit by rain, so I'm going to run down the hall. We've got a watch party with all of my Monster Jam coworkers. We've got pizza and stuff in the room, so I told them I'm hopping on this. We're going to talk about the race, and I'm going to go watch the duel with some friends. But thanks for having me, guys, and hopefully I'll be able to come back soon.
Yeah, we'll see you next race, and thanks for coming on. All right, cool.
Yeah, take care.
Yeah, so eNASCAR blowing up, guys.
And jumping back into the topics, we have a new announcement that has me really excited. Actually, that's not the next topic then. The next topic is the time slots for the NASCAR iRacing series, which we're going to have which I'm also really excited about. So it's the standard time slots that we've seen over the last couple of years. For your fixed series, you're going to have Wednesday 4 Eastern, and then I guess eventually it'll be 5 Eastern when the time changes. Is that what that indicates? Is that indicating when it's going to change time zones?
So this is what always screws me up every year, because some of the races change time with daylight savings and others don't.
Oh yes, so it says EST and EDT. Sorry, I didn't catch that detail quicker. On the Thursday nights will be 9 p.m. Eastern Standard and Daylight Time, so that one changes when daylight changes. Saturday 5 a.m. and 6 a.m. That one does not change. It will move for Americans when daylight changes. Saturday will shift with daylight savings time. It'll be at 12 p.m. both Standard Time and Daylight Time, and then Sunday 9 p.m. Eastern or Eastern Daylight. Then we're jumping into the fixed, and we got Wednesday 9 p.m.
That's open.
I'm sorry, that's open. So yeah, we're talking open. It's Wednesday 9 p.m. Eastern Standard and Eastern Daylight. Thursday will be 2 p.m. Eastern Standard, 3 p.m. when we go to Daylight Time. Thursday is 9 p.m. Eastern Standard and Daylight, and Sunday is 10 a.m. Eastern Standard and Daylight. So it's what we're used to. We just got to put a note on there for Mike and put an over-under on whether or not he misses a race this year when the time changes.
He'll still miss it. It doesn't matter what we do. He'll still miss it.
He's missed it 3 times.
Yeah. We're going to skip ahead in the interest of time. We saw Ty Majeski get a P2. He almost won in the iRacing colors again. Matt Weaver put up a picture of him on Twitter after the race. Don't forget, we're on the Performance Motorsports Network now, and online streaming. You can get that at iOS or Android. 5-7 times a week, I believe, we're on there. So getting a lot of exposure. And let's jump into hardware, software. First up, I want to talk about iRacer Assistant. All one word. You can look that up in the forums. You can go to the show notes and get the link. And I'm telling you guys, download this and run it. Okay, if you run iRacing this and you do third-party apps, at a minimum, use it to open your third-party apps. So what I do is I turn on my computer. I have one icon on the middle of the screen. I click it. It's called iRacer Assistant. Open up the interface. I push one button, and it opens up TeamSpeak, OBS, Sim Racing Apps, Dual Real Timing, the podcast script, my email, everything I want open, it opens all at once with one button push. And it saves me, 25 clicks every time I start up my computer. So just that alone, it's worth it. It does a lot of other things. Like if you're trying to switch easily between VR and monitors, this tool does it for you by swapping out those I and I's. So check it out. It's definitely worth it. I liked it. Adam, you got a sneak peek at a new Sim Lab product.
Yeah, they got some. Where are we at? It's up on Instagram here. It looks like SimLab EU has a new.
It's not 80/20.
No, it's not. It looks like it's made out of tubes and looks pretty sturdy. Looks pretty comfortable actually. F1 seating kinda, but without the F1 chassis. Your feet are up above the seat.
Yeah, your feet are above your butt, so to speak, and he's really kind of laying back. The wheel really up in your face, kind of thing. Tubular kind of design. I really like the platform it's kind of sitting on. It's more, I don't know, it almost looks like it's for style more than anything. Some of the comments indicate that it'll be D-Box ready too, like you'll be able to bolt D-Box onto it. No prices yet.
That must mean it's pretty expensive.
Also on Instagram, Wave Italy from Italy put up a picture of their new Force pedals, and boy, they look pretty sleek. Kind of neat looking. I have no idea what they cost. This is kind of what I think is some kind of prototype. But it's a 2-pedal set, and we've talked about Wave Italy before, and they do have other pedals, but this is their new one, so we'll keep an eye out for those. Okay, and then we'll move to David. You got the Sim Racing LED kit.
Yeah, it's a pretty neat little kit that you can throw up. It's a strip of LEDs that'll go all the way around your monitor. And it works with the API software for most sim racing softwares, including the Sparta sim connections on iRacing. And if you get towards the end of this video, first he shows you how to kind of put it together and gives you some tips. And at the end of the video, you can actually see it working. It's pretty nice. It's got you can see the spotter on the left and right. Down at the bottom, you can actually have the tachometer running. So neat little LED strips that you can throw up. I'm tempted, even though I'm on VR, to put some kind of LED lighting on my rig just to enhance the stream, make my face glow different colors when it's under caution and stuff.
Nobody wants to see your face glowing.
I have the big 55-inch monitor up above my rig, and this would be perfect on around the edges of it, like this guy has it in the video.
Kind of reminds me of Christmas lights almost.
Yeah, but Carl Gosling did a nice little installation and review of the product on his YouTube channel. So check out Carl. Thanks, Carl, for putting that up. We've talked about Sim Racing Studio before. They sell the wind kits that we've talked about. They sell the base shaker and butt kicker stuff, and they have these LED things as well. Okay, and now we have Tony Groves, a motion cockpit review.
Yeah, this would go a whole lot better if I watched the video. That's absolutely terrible, but fast forward, it looks like it's a whole, like they're building this whole video. It's an hour and 45 minutes. So, with that being said, I don't think I would have watched that anyways. It's a long watch. But
it's only part 1, too.
Oh my lord, look at that. It is so. The build, duh. Read the words. It's right there in front of your face. Yeah, it's the ProSimu T1000 5M4 DOF motion cockpit. This thing looks like an absolute beast. Like, this isn't... looks like some fairly serious hardware they're putting together. But I imagine if you're going motion, you want something real sturdy, and looks like you can park a car on this thing and it'll shake that thing around.
There's a link to the product in the description of the video, and when you click it and go to their website, which is prosimu.com, man, that thing is a beauty. And you can see it's got the D-Box style up and down on each corner. It's got the slide left to right underneath that. Kind of like that Next Level Racing traction loss one that we've been talking about for $6,000. Boy, but this one is really nice.
Well, yeah, looking at some of those pictures that they got showing like a side view, and I'm kind of wondering, is that the D-Box setup, like how big are those actuators? Like
they stick up really high, don't they?
Well, it looks like they would give you a lot of movement, so I guess we're gonna have to wait till part 2 of this build video to see this thing in action, maybe. But if that's the case, like that's pretty serious. I don't think we've seen them move that high, but it looks like there's a lot of room to for movement, so I guess we'll wait and see.
You almost got to climb up in that thing.
Looks like it's 7,500 euros, which isn't bad considering that product I was just talking about, just the bottom with no cockpit on it was $6,000. This has the D-Box, the cockpit, the seat, everything, and the thing on the bottom for 7,600 euros. Not bad, not bad. Let's go to the next spectrum of the cost, $200 or less. Chris, we got some new pedals.
Yeah, Thrustmaster is coming out with some load cell pedals, the Thrustmaster TLCNs. And yeah, I mean it's kind of fits with their other products. Like it seems like it's fairly solid. It's not going to be anything like the high-end stuff, but it seems to be a solid product for for the rest of us. For $200 you get a load cell pedal set. Sim Racing Garage has a really good hour-long review of this, and he breaks it completely apart. And it seems like most of the important bits are metal. Like it kind of seems to be where they kind of draw the line too. Where this might, if you have an unlimited budget, this probably isn't your pedal set, but for $200, it's a fairly solid load cell set.
These are probably the cheapest, best pedals you can get now. You can get them on Amazon for $199.99. Thrustmaster TLCM pedals.
Now,
see, guys, sorry, Chris, but now this is in my wheelhouse. Like, your resident cheap bastard right here. I'm digging it, but I know, Chris, that you said something about this diamond plating. It's murder on your heels, right?
yeah, they have. So I have the T3PAs, and they have that same diamond plate on them, and I had ended up duct taping foam to that diamond plate because they were grinding my heels having on that diamond plate all the time. And honestly, I think the T3PAs are $150, and you can invert. You can use them inverted or not inverted. And I think that's the only thing that I'm missing from this. I'd rather have inverted pedals. And so for $200, I don't know, maybe get the T3PAs and add a load cell to them. But yeah, for $200, this seems like a pretty solid bet.
Yeah, this is the floor base. It is pre-order on Amazon. It releases March 26th. All right, Adam, let's go to the other end of the spectrum on the pedals. Tell us about the $1,500 HPP JBVs.
Alright, looks like Richard J. Hopkins has a review up on the forum about it. His overall, he liked the pedals. The only really problem he had with it was the length of the wires.
Okay. And these are the pretty blue ones that we've been talking about for several months now. This is the first review we've seen, but as far as the review, I mean, it did come in favorable, as far as them being great pedals. And I do know one of our listeners, I think his name is Joe, he ordered some too, and he told us in a message he got some of these, so pretty cool. Okay, and then finally, Tony Groves, tell us about the Sim Magic. We might have a U.S. distro coming.
Yeah. Once again, I have got no idea what we're talking about here.
Well, the Sim Magic, that's that direct drive wheel knockoff from Hong Kong.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Sorry, Mike, you're going to have to walk me through this one.
So the story is Jeffrey Ford is in discussions with them about becoming a U.S. distributor of that product. And as we've talked about before, you have to be very careful about who you're buying it from, and you're getting it from the right place and this kind of thing. So apparently Jeff has bought a couple of the wheels. He did a kind of a small review on them. He just basically said they're awesome. He said the actual wheel that comes with the base is really bomb. There's no wires. Everything is wireless. And he said the software is pretty basic. But he's trying to arrange to be a distributor. If you don't know, Jeffrey Ford builds computers for iRacers. He sells them on Facebook, basically. But yeah.
Now, these ones here, though, I know they're like a little bit cheaper than, you know, the regular direct drives, but I don't believe that they're all that much cheaper. I think they're around like $700-800 mark.
Yeah.
Okay, so
with wheel.
Still. Yeah. Now I've had good and bad with Chinese stuff. I find usually it's a lot of tinkering I have to do, but I don't know. I'd really like to see somebody break one of these down and see what the guts are and the quality of what's inside. I think that would be an interesting video.
Yeah, we need Barry Rowland to get one, right?
Yeah, I mean that could tell you if that, you know, that $800 you're plunking down for this thing is worth it. Because I mean, if that thing breaks in a year, you're going to be butthurt like crazy, rather than, you know, spend an extra couple $100 and get something from a reputable name that we know and has got a, you know, bit of a reputation, right?
We'll know in the next couple of weeks, because there's at least a half dozen iRacers on the forums that have bought this. Most of them are still waiting for it to arrive, so we'll know soon. And with that, let's get into results. Guys, the Daytona 500, let's go through it. Wednesday, Fix, Tony Rochette, P7. He said, man, felt good to run this NIS again. Started 7th, stayed out of trouble. Didn't have much help on the final green flag run to catch the lead pack. Wednesday Open, Bobby Jonas, P12. Setup was great. Would have had a better start than 11th. Got a bit greedy on the tape. Race was going smooth until about 10 or 15. Got turned running in top 10. Got damage repaired. Had some shifter issues that set us back. Battled back to finish 12th on to Vegas. Nick Williams, P35. Great setup and ran up front, leading until a chain reaction of bad bumps from 2 cars back turned me head on into the straightaway wall while leading the field. A wreck magnet curse continues. Sorry, I didn't want to call you a wreck magnet, but Adam, tell us about your race.
This is a testament to what you guys did building the setup, and I just tweaked on it. But that was the fastest car I've ever had at Daytona. Ended up P19, but I got it going really good on the track. But the only problem is, because of that, it wouldn't get off pit road very well, and that's when I would lose the draft from the adjustments I made. So unless we had a caution, I couldn't keep up and would lose a lap. But P19 fall like hell the whole race.
Okay, and did we have the wrong lower gear in? I kind of had that problem too, getting off pit road where people were faster. Maybe we had the wrong gears in.
I think it was more of a handling problem.
Oh.
I'm guessing we were handling a little bit better, so I'm guessing we had a little bit more downforce.
Mm-hmm.
But y'all were not running the one that I ran, right? Y'all had something a little different.
Yeah.
I ran yours, David.
I ran David's set as well. Greg, tell us about your race.
Well, Mike, you and I were both in that race. I finished P14, but I stayed out of trouble through that whole race and stayed in the top, probably with the top 8 through that whole race. And with 8 to go, I don't know, I was kind of mad, but you know, it was such a long race. I'm drafting a guy down the back straightaway, and then he pulls back in line, and then another guy shoots out, and the car that's right behind him shoots out with him, thinking that I'm not there, and basically takes me out. It kind of upset me because I'm like, you don't know that I'm there. I should have sent the ad for that spotlights to him, David?
Hey, it's really nice. I actually turned the spotter off at Daytona because the crew chief spotter just keeps saying they're there and they're there, they're there. So
Yeah,
I just
I
told
did
it to
too.
quit spotting. You just see the red light.
Yep, it's so much easier just to go with a visual cue.
And you were in good shape, Greg, with a good car with no damage for the longest time. I mean, until you got...
We had, 3 green flag pit stops?
Yeah.
we ran probably what 120 laps there, green flag after the first, I don't know, the first 40 laps were caution.
Yeah, my race was bad. I got 17th. I got wrecked up in an early incident that basically put my RPMs down a little bit. I had a little bit of damage, but it was enough to put me where I wasn't competitive, and it kind of sucked. David, let's talk about your race. As I told at the beginning of the podcast, you won, P1. You are a Daytona 500 winner. Tell us all about it.
Yeah, I spent the whole race kind of like Greg did. My goal was basically stay within the top 5, top 8, not be overly aggressive, but not let myself get shuffled to the back. So if any time that outside line would get going, I'd move over there, get back up to around 2 or 3. I kept staying. I didn't want to ever lead early on because we were always right on this kind of fuel window where the leader was not going to make it, but everybody else was. So I was trying to stay second or third. And it laid out. We had a final green flag stop, and I found me and this 21 car twice ended up about 5 or 6 seconds after green flag cycles behind the lead pack. And with my set and with his set, we were just insanely fast. I could push him all the way around the track just about, and I just barely had to back off every once in a while to let the car cool off just a little, and we would run him down in 10 laps. So we knew we could, if we hooked back up, we could catch up with him, and that's exactly what happened. We had a pit stop with I think 20 to go, green flag, and we just came up and just blasted by them with like 5 laps to go. And I pushed him until the final lap, and a car behind me read my mind, and coming off turn 2, we made a move, and the guy that pulled me all the way to the front, I left him behind and took the win.
That's how it's done. Well done. Great way to start the season. Let's talk about today's race. Chris, you also win the Daytona 500. This is your 3rd 500 win in the 3 years.
Yeah, mine wasn't all that eventful. Unfortunately, I kind of played the conservative route and just rode in the back off of the lead pack, just kind of within drafting distance basically, and just missed the cautions when they happened, and with 50 or so to go, decided it was time to go, and I don't know that I had a good run on the outside with maybe 30, 25 to go, and got the lead, and just stuck it there. We had a few more cautions. It was actually a pretty clean race for the most part. I mean, we had a few cautions, but we still had probably 20 cars on the lead lap with maybe 50 to go. But of course, we kind of wadded them up after that. And but yeah, once I had that lead with like 20 to go or so, it just the outside just never got a good enough run. Shout out to Jason Ashton. I think was the guy that was pushing me there at the end and through a good chunk of those last 20 laps. I mean, you don't win one of those without somebody not doing stupid things behind you, and he was that guy. And I think I saw the picture of the replay, and it looks like he probably would have won that too if I didn't have John Hammer holler at me in TeamSpeak to dive it below the yellow line, because between run he had and what he would have had side drafting me, he probably would have nosed me out, because we probably would have been just about side by side if I would have been actually up on the track.
So you had 5 or 6 spotters there at the end. We're all rooting for you. I think Hammer was in there, and Mark and me and Joe, and we're all telling you what to do. Was it any help?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's hard to screw it up when you have that much experience in there. Telling you how not to screw it up. I mean, yeah. It's definitely a ton of help, and I've had, I think, just if I'm not mistaken, every one of those wins I've had somebody there telling me how to win the race.
Yeah, it gives you a little bit more confidence. You calm down when you have somebody saying, "Hey, you're doing it right. You're in the right place. This is what we're doing." Hey, good job. Now I won as well. I won my split. I ran with Chris, but I was in a different split. P1. I led the most laps. I was up front all day long. I was in control of the race. I won it, and I won it in style too. There was just 2 of us left at the beginning. We actually had a 30-second lead over 3rd and 4th and 5th. There were only 5 cars on the lead lap. I have no idea how it got that way. They were wrecking behind me ever so often. I think the front was the place to be because at least 2 or 3 times the wreck happened like literally right behind me. Like second and third take each other out. And I don't, the other thing is I had 12X. The first 8X, I didn't even have any damage. I just kind of got bumped during an incident. No damage at all, but at 8X, I had another incident where a guy hit me under caution. It was another 4X to 12. I know there's a stop and go at 14, and man, I was worried about that as we got down at the end. If, one more hit, and I would have not won that race. But, hey, I brought it home. Man, what a way to start the season.
Man, I know during that race you mentioned, is there a way to see somebody's incident points during a race? And I don't think there is, and that would probably be a good instance of why there isn't a way, and hopefully it stays that way, because if that guy behind you would have known that you were that close on incidents, he could have just gave you a good whack.
That's why I asked that. I was thinking, is there some way he knows? Because if all he has to do is hit me once and I'm done.
I think it shows up on Joe Real Timing.
I haven't looked, but
the only way you can really see it is if somebody's spotting for you in the info page. Is it not? I think because that's how it shows them when you're doing like team races.
I don't know. We need to look into that because that could be something to look at for strategy in these races.
Yeah, I don't think you want to go that way. That's protestable, anyways.
Yeah, you're right.
Well, it's still a strategy for who. Maybe I don't want to be in front of this guy.
It's true. The more knowledge you have, the better. So.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk a few other races besides NIS. I ran the sprint car at Iowa, the sprint pavement car, on Tuesday nights. We've talked about this series before. It's official, but they organize and run on certain times to get a big group. And guess what? 17 cars in that race. I had a blast. I wrecked near the end trying to avoid a different wreck. Just by letting off the gas, the car you just lose it. I mean, it's so hard to drive, but that's what makes it so fun. But what a great group they have there. Dan Smith, Jeff, and those guys. They have a great page. Search Sprint Car, and you guys will find it. They publicize basically the day and the time. Come race with me. I'm actually going to plan on doing it every Tuesday after work for the next few weeks just because it's a blast. All right, David, Winter Series wrapped up, right?
Yeah, we had our season finale Monday. We ran at Miami. It ran caution free. I came in P9. There was, I think, the 22 cars in the field. And that's just how fast I was. I would run a couple of guys down, and other guys were faster. And, there's pros in there, so I'm pretty happy with the P9. I finished P12 on the season, even though I only got to count 12 or 11 weeks, where some people got to count 12. And it's actually a paying position. So it was fun getting to run with those guys. I don't get all the way up to top split that often in NIS. So it was quite a kick.
Yeah.
I feel bad that I, committed to racing that, never got a chance to really race it this winter. But thanks for Alan, to Alan for inviting me into it. I hope he's not mad that I didn't get to show up much.
Yeah, it's always next year. It's a great group over there. And then David, Pacific Majors, we kind of treated that as a practice race, right, for yesterday?
Well, yeah, you could say that, but I made top split on this. I raced my way in a duel. You were actually spotting me on that one.
Yep.
So I got to run in the top split, and I should have known this, but all of the practice races they had been really sloppy. A lot of guys that just couldn't hold their line. But all those practice races included guys from all of the different regional time zones, and not the guys who made the top split. And so I should have realized once I was in that top split with Ashton Crowder and Blake Reynolds and all those that it was going to run clean. And guess what? I laid back, and a couple of mistakes. Never got the chance to get them back. After 160 green flag laps, I was down a lap and just could never get it back and finished 21st.
Well, that shows you don't lay back because there might not be a caution, and that's what happened in that race. It kind of bit you.
Yeah, it did. I think it does come down to who you're racing with because teammate Bobby was like, I'm never listening to you again, because he's in a lower split and it was a wreck fest there, and if he'd have stayed back, he probably would have missed it. But these, as you get into some of the upper splits, they are, especially particularly at the plate races, they will take their time and be a little bit more careful.
All right, and that's it. Let's get to final thoughts. Adam Jocelyn.
Well, it was a lot of hard work over the winter to get the I rating up. Made a top split as the last car in the 500. So hopefully going into next week we can be in top split again. And I'm done with Daytona. Besides running a NASCAR K&N League race Saturday night at 10 o'clock. So if anyone wants to come out and run that, but other than that, I'm just gonna start testing for Vegas tonight.
Goal was accomplished. You made the top split, so well done. On to Road to Pro, right?
Yes, sir. A few more weeks and we'll get rolling with that. Start to Daytona in the truck, so we're not completely done with Daytona.
Okay, very good. Chris Scales, final thought.
And headed off to Old Bastards practice at Daytona in the Xfinity car. So from the Cup to Xfinity should be fun. Not done with Daytona yet either.
All right, nice win today, by the way. David Hall, final thought.
Shout out to Snell Racing again. They actually promoted my charity on their most recent video. And while I'm at it, I'm going to go ahead and announce what my charity is. I have a Patreon site for my high school band. And I teach in a small rural Arkansas district where only a few of the kids in the entire school district really have any money at all. And we get some budget support, but we always still need a little extra money to make sure the kids can actually afford to buy concessions when we go to marching contests and stuff like that. So patreon.com/chsband, and you can go on there, and if I stream all the time, so instead of supporting my stream, support my actually real life band and throw a couple of dollars towards the CHS band boosters.
All right, great cause. Thanks to Annie for talking about it, and she even used some of your music though as the background music.
That's right. We used it here on the podcast as well, and I just shot it over to them and said, "Hey, use it if you want it." And then in return, they promoted my charity. I didn't even ask; they just said, "Hey, what's your charity?" And I gave it to them.
Yep, and she was congratulatory about our wins earlier today for me and Chris as well. So thanks, Annie.
We do have a we do have a community race that she's running again this weekend, and I just tossed up a new in our group chat a new Legends paint. They're going to be running the Mazdas and the Legends at the Roval. It's going to be pretty entertaining.
And they broadcast it too.
Yeah, I think is it Apex Racing is the broadcast partner for that.
All right, Greg Hectus, final thoughts.
Just looking forward to the 500 again tomorrow night. I'm gonna try it again. Man, was I exhausted today. I that went till just after midnight last night, and I had to be up at 3:30 in the morning. So I was on a couple hours of sleep, and then worked a 13-hour shift today. So pretty exhausted. I'm gonna go to bed here soon. But there was a lot of people. I think it was most of our teammates that were watching my stream last night. But I appreciate everybody that was watching that race. It's kind of boring in the middle half of it, but almost got it done. I was a race-winning car. I just didn't get to try it at the end there. But I look forward to Friday night. And yeah, I didn't get to say much on the podcast today because David put a task on me before we got to the thing here, and I've been working on it in the background here. But it's good to listen to the podcast today, and we'll see you on the podcast next week.
Okay, thanks, Greg. Tony Groves, final thought.
Well, I guess I gotta throw an apology firsthand. I've been a little distracted tonight. I've got like one side of my headset past my ear so I can listen to what's happening at the duels, and obviously they got rained out, but that still distracted me anyways. Can't walk and chew bubblegum at the same time. Want to mention out again about our Fantasy League, the iRacers Lounge podcast, Fantasy League through the NASCAR Fantasy Live. You can access it through the website or the app. We had a few listeners sign up and join us. We'd love to have a bunch more. Let's make this a thing. And so we've got a couple more days before the season starts. It's I've been doing it for a couple of years now. I love it. It's fun little deal week in and week out, and you know, good for bragging rights too, right?
Yeah, and just keep reminding me to do it. I always forget about it after a few weeks. But get in on it, guys, before the season starts. That's the whole idea. All right, my final thoughts. Thanks to Judd for coming on and telling us about Abruzzi, Judd Danielson. And then Evan Pasoko, the voice of eNASCAR, coming on. I've worked a deal with him to hopefully have him come on after every Coke race and just help us review the race. Have some subject matter expert. We're also planning Taylor Burris to come on to talk about the Road to Pro broadcast after each of those events and help us review those races. So that's what's new on the iRacers Lounge podcast for 2020. We're going to have some subject matter experts come on to help us talk those races. Man, what a way to win the 500. I had so much confidence coming into this week. I knew I could do it. I was leading the laps, and just can I bring it home at the end? And sure enough, I was able to, and it just love it when a plan comes together. And with that, we'll see you on the track. Later. Okay, we're clear. Title ideas.
Love it when a
User in
plan
your
comes
channel
together.
stopped recording.
No, it's got to be something to do with the 18 because that's how it ended.
That's the plan, Stan.
You get a Daytona, and you get a Daytona.
I like that one.
What did you think of my video?
It's a nice start. If you got time, Mike, you should drop that clip in there, but before the results. Just Oprah Winfrey saying you get a, and then like somebody else saying Daytona 500.
Okay. Which one do we like? Number 3? Vote. Everyone call one out.
3.
2.
Everyone call one out.
I'm not on the script anymore.
I'm not even on the script anymore either.
We got
How
Blame
about
the
3?
Burritos.
I voted 3, so we'll do 3.
I'll go 3.
Okay, and then you got the description. Thank you. Whew. Man, we had to skip a lot. You were right, Tony.
Yeah. If
Yeah, I knew that was gonna take a while. That's all good though. I mean, that's the bread and butter right there. Like,
It was good stuff, yeah.
Oh man, he is so good.
Yeah, really good.
Both guys today, like that Judd, man, he's got away with words as well. He came across real good.
And if you want, are you running the fixed, Mike?
Yeah, I got to get going. I got to get it going.
Well,
I'm not going to get that video done tonight, am I?
So do you want me to... I can upload that now if you want, Greg. I hadn't have a chance.
Yeah, you can do that. I'll finish it up, hopefully.
Okay, I'm on the drive. Where do you want it?
There's a 500 file.
says
All right,
Daytona
boys, I'm
500
gonna
wins.
bail.
All right, I'll get it
What's
there.
happening? I gotta go watch these guys rap.
Sound muted.